All right, seeing that it's 5:30, I'd like to call to order the Fitchburg Board of Public Works meeting for April 19th, 2021. First order, today at our meeting, we have myself in chambers, City Engineer Bill Balke, calling in, Sarah Schroeder, Kim Lobdell, Michael Granetsky, and we have a number of people calling in for agenda item that I will introduce when we move to the agenda item. Again, public appearances for non-agenda items, number 2. I believe everyone here is here for the agenda item. Is that correct? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, we'll talk to you in a little bit. Yes?
I would like to just state which items I'm recusing myself from before we start into the agenda.
Okay, which ones, Kim?
I will not be participating in 6A, 6B, or 6E. And I'll turn my video off and my microphone when we get to each of those items.
Thank you very much. So noted, Kim. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so first, next agenda item, number 3, approval of minutes. Do we have approval of the April 5th, 2021 Board of Public Works minutes?
I'll move for approval.
Move, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. Any discussion on the minutes, any changes? Okay. Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next, agenda item 4, review of February utility P-card purchases and March checks. So I'll let the other members go first if they have any questions on these. I'm just paging down to them here. I'll go last. Anyone? Okay. I'll go then. On the first page of the checks, the meters, we had a number of meters for $22.50. I didn't understand what the core and main LP stood for, Bill. Can you enlighten me on that?
It's a company. Got it. It's a company that we purchase our meters from.
Okay, all right. And these are these for new customers or are these replacements?
These are for both.
Okay,
Actually, they're all new customers.
all right.
Yep.
Very good, thank you. Then I was down to page 1 of the check register. And the second one, Bill, on 3/1 to Dane County Treasurer, Manswap, I&E 2021. What is that one again? I'm sorry that I.
It's Madison Area Metropolitan Stormwater. Oh boy, AP. I don't know what that one is.
Okay.
But it's our regional group that we have. It's a consortium that we have with municipalities that we all pool our money to have a common education outreach program. So that's for that program.
Okay. Is the amount based on the number of residents in each city? Is that how
Correct.
it's determined? Okay. All right. And I think that was the last one I had. Any more? All right. Then, with no more questions, takes us to the report of the department head, Mr. Bill Balke.
All right. Yeah, we're pretty busy out there with construction starting. We've got the Northeast Water Main connection or construction that's happening on West Clayton Road, and they're going to be starting on County Highway MM starting tomorrow. So that project is underway, heading toward Terravesa starting tomorrow down MM. And we've got the resurfacing project that's coming out for bid within the next couple of weeks. The chip seal and crack filling projects are out for bid, they are out for bid right now. And let's see, we got subdivisions going, Stoner Prairie, Crescent Crossing, all underway. Fahey Fields is going to start up in less than a week. Let's see what else we got for projects. Fish Hatchery Road is going. You might have seen that the concrete up there has been removed, and there's a big pile of it now waiting to be ground up for reuse under the road. Been dealing with some issues with some signing on the bike detours, but it seems like we've come up with a solution to help make those riders more aware of the detour for Fish Hatchery Road and the Cap City Trail. Street sweeping out there every day. Street sweepers in pretty good condition so far, so hopefully that won't be breaking down anytime soon. We had I think I mentioned it last time, a new public works employee that started a couple of weeks ago in the stormwater area, who's going to be doing the street sweeping, assisting with the street sweeping with the current program that we have going on so that we can meet our permit requirements. Andrew's been working pretty hard with different stakeholder groups with the Sain Road and the Lacey Road projects, as well as managing the Fish Hatchery Road and the East Sherrill Parkway resurfacing project that just started up this morning too. So that's going to be necked down to one lane of traffic, or it's going to be narrowed, 2 lanes, or you can have 1 lane in each direction, but it's going to be narrow through there while they do the concrete work and the intersection improvements. And then they'll be doing the resurfacing starting early June. Yeah, I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Bill. Questions from the board for Bill?
Hey, Bill, I have a very specific question. Water fountains at parks, are those going to remain off for the foreseeable future?
Yes, I believe that's the policy going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Kim, Sarah, questions for Bill?
I just had one, and it has to do with the stormwater study on Lake Barney in that area. How's that going?
We went to the city council. I think we had a committee of the whole meeting on that one with recommendations. I wasn't in attendance with that one, but we did put in the budget for the recommendations that were made at that meeting, and we'll see how that comes of it, what comes of it in the budget cycle.
So the report is finished and they have recommendations and you put them in the budget, and like you said, you'll see where the priorities come up in the budget. Is that correct?
Correct. I believe we've posted that study online with the recommendations on the website in the stormwater section somewhere.
Okay.
Any more? Bill, I got a couple. Can you look on your schedule and see when Smithfield in my neighborhood is scheduled for any work? I would say it's deplorable. And let me know when that is scheduled. I've had a lot of people ask me when we can do something there. The second, the concrete it's broken up on Fish Hatch. Are they crushing it there and putting it back down for road bed? Is it being taken somewhere to be pulverized? What's going on with that?
Yeah, they'll be bringing in a crusher.
It'll be right on site?
On site, and they'll crush it and take it, and as they dig out their old road bed, they'll be placing it in the lower layer.
Okay. All right. And I guess those were the only two I had here. All right. All right, so now we're going to move on to our agenda items. First is going to be agenda item 6A, Resolution R61-21, resolution approving a typical section for Lacey Road reconstruction project from Fitchburg Road to Seminole Highway. Before we move on, we have a number of people registered to speak. Tom Thorson, Joe Arata, Jay Hockmuth, Cheryl Strassman, John Wonderland, Dan Barr, Tom Clouder, Rita, some of these people are registering, Rita Hendricks, Dale Hendricks, David Strassman, Cheryl Strassman, and Tom Thornton. So some of you, I think, are just registering to support an action, delaying a decision. Some of you are here to want to speak in person. So first, we have to have a motion to approve, and then we can start our discussion. So do we have a motion to approve Resolution R 61-21?
I'll move approval of resolution R 6121,
Okay.
approving a typical section for the Lacey Road reconstruction project from Fitchburg to Seminole.
Okay, moved by Schroeder. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. Okay, so what I'd like to do, I'm going to call people, speakers, in order to go through those. Then I'm going to ask Bill and Andrew to comment, and then we will see where this takes us here. So first, I'd like to call Jay Hockmuth to come and speak first here. Thank you.
About a half hour ago. Thank you for allowing me for the opportunity to appear here this evening. My name is Jay Hockmuth. I have lived in Fitchburg for 35 years, and I worked for DNR for 12 years as a environmental engineer, and then another 25 years in various management positions. I just handed the chair a copy of an email I sent to the members of the committee a few minutes ago. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. Tonight, you are being asked to recommend to the council that it approve a cross-section for the proposal on page 9 of agenda item 6A. Please do not do that. Instead, please recommend to the council that the matter be tabled until May 25th, and staff be directed to hold 3 more meetings of the ad hoc advisory group, evaluate the low-cost impact alternative detailed in the email that 5 neighbors and myself sent the members of this board on April 17th, and determine the cost of the main elements of the April 12th staff proposal and the low-impact alternative. A copy of our email is attached to this email. I just gave the chair a copy of that, but emailed everybody a copy. It goes into great detail about many of the reasons why you should recommend that the matter be tabled until the April 27th council meeting. I'm sorry, it should be tabled until the May 25th council meeting. That's a typo. The key reasons are the environmental impacts of the April 12th proposal and the alternatives in the attached email have not been quantified. The cost of the alternative in the attached email has not been quantified, so how much money can be saved is unknown. Developers of properties on the south side of Lacey Road should pay for the rough grading filling needed for a 7-foot terrace and a 5-foot sidewalk on these properties as they're developed. The TID for the properties north of Lacey Road should never pay for this rough grading and filling, which is likely to cost over $500,000. This project does not have to be completed between June 15th and August 31st, so there are no traffic impacts on nearby schools. The project that will impact traffic on nearby schools is the reconfiguration of the Lacey Road Seminole Highway intersection. And by the way, there's still not been a public hearing held on that, and there's got to be. And then when that's done, then we have to go through the same process, and that may be on the critical path more than this project. But be that as it may, this project is not on the critical path right now. There's a couple of months afloat in the schedule, and this should not be rushed through in the name of critical path evaluation. And there will still be more time to complete the project during the 2022 construction season, so that we just don't need to act on this today. And the the benefits of waiting for a month or two to get enough information to determine what the council wants to spend their money on and so on should be delayed. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those now.
Board, any questions for Jay? All right, thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Next, we'll alternate between people attending virtually and people. Joe, would you like to speak next? Still there, Joe? Is he still muted? Okay.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. So my name is Joe Arita. I'm a homeowner and resident of Fitchburg for the last 20 years. And I actually partially just want to start out by saying that I agree with everything that Jay said, and quite frankly couldn't have said much of it better. So there are a couple things that I would like to elaborate on, however, and to start with that. One thing that is of particular concern is that it's been stated that Fitchburg is going to mitigate the tree loss by planting additional trees. And from an ecological perspective, the loss of these mature trees in a dense, mixed deciduous tree stand cannot be replaced by lone trees that are planted in a line on the side of the roadway. You know, these new trees are going to take decades to reach maturity and provide anywhere near the same level of value as the existing trees do. And the current trees provide much needed homes for the wildlife in the area, you know, and to remove those at this time without properly evaluating the impact seems reckless. So I would like to see this delayed, as Jay mentioned, in order to provide a more thorough and adequate ecological impact on the tree loss. Another thing that I would like to point out is the on-street bike lanes, and much of this I think is laid out in Jay's email attachment that he had sent. But you know, there's already a 10 to 12 foot multi-use path planned for this project. I myself am an avid biker, and you know, I just to see these large on-street bike lanes, you know, on top of the multi-use path, it just doesn't appear necessary to me. You know, I'm one of those people. I bike very fast. I bike quite far. And I just don't see the need for on-street bike lanes, you know, that are going to cost close to upwards of $500,000, generate an additional almost 900,000 gallons of runoff, just for you know, just over a mile stretch of bike lane. It just doesn't seem wise to implement that. Another thing that I would like to see is if we're looking at, there's been kind of talk of, well, these bike lanes could mitigate greenhouse gases by allowing people to commute on their bikes versus driving cars. And I think if that claim is going to be made, it needs to be substantiated and quantified via a direct comparison of the greenhouse gases and runoff emitted by building the bike lanes versus how many commuters would be required for how many years before we actually reach a carbon neutral state. And lastly, just the idea that on-street bike lanes are superior to multi-use paths. I'm sure we've all seen the plethora of things people do while driving, texting, browsing social media, messing with their radios, eating, drinking, all the things they shouldn't be doing. You know, I simply don't feel safe and will not feel safe biking on the road, no matter how wide the bike lane is. And I think that a path to separate the bikers from all the cars out there is a vastly superior idea from a safety perspective. So those are the primary things I just wanted to point out. In my opinion, I think the proposal just cannot be allowed to move forward in its current state. I would be profoundly disappointed in my city if we continue to rush this proposal through without performing that adequate analysis on lower cost and lower impact alternatives. So I also urge the city to table this until the May 25th meeting in order to provide time for those things to be performed. So thank you, everybody. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Sue Easterday to come and speak.
Hello, thanks for allowing me to make comments today. I'm Susan Easterday, 2731 Osmondson Road. I have resided there since 2004, and I agree with the first two speakers here and have a little bit to say about slightly different, but perhaps a little bit overlapping topics. There was a Parks and Recreation Commission meeting a couple months ago that I'm a member of that commission, and Stephen Arnold, who's a proponent of bicycling in the city and has done a lot of work to that end, spoke to us on a different topic, but he offered that 1% of adult cyclists are in the category of, in quotes, confident and fearless, and they would be comfortable riding alongside traffic. And that phrase, confident and fearless, comes from a study that was done, a 50 cities bicycle study. So that's confident and fearless may be more than 1%, but it's not a large percent. I had subsequent discussions and asked questions about a lot of this, and I learned there isn't any study that quantifies what Fitchburg's adult bicyclists would want to do. And I did learn that the 50 cities bicycle study was asking the adults if they would feel confident if that was their only alternative, not where we have in Fitchburg already provided multi-use paths for those same bicyclists to travel. So the idea that we would have that many adults making use of these lanes, it just doesn't hold up. And Fitchburg, using the 50 cities study is a false equivalency to anything that goes on in Fitchburg. So we have no data that tells us this is the best thing to do. Switching gears, the more on the environmental aspect of my concerns is that since the 1960s, North America's migrating bird populations have fallen 40 to 60% because of habitat destruction. And the environment we're talking about for this project is a mix of mature trees and includes dead trees, which have a value all of their own. And so please consider at first that nature exists for itself, not simply for our appreciation or manipulation. And in echoing Joe's comments, 140 trees in a line down the road will never replace a cluster of older growth trees. And as soon as these trees are gone, all the migrating species that choose mature trees, 60 feet tall, roughly give take, they will not nest in any of those 140 trees that are planted down the road. They're too small. And they'll never be growing in an environment where there are also dead growth, which is valuable because the birds' food sources are often in the dead growth of those other trees. And then the staff memo that was circulated about this project talked about one of the imperatives was to clear the trees in the construction limits before the big brown bat maternity period from June through August of 2022. The big brown bat populations are classified as a threatened species in Wisconsin. So we're not concerned about that, but we're just in a hurry to remove their nesting grounds, so they're forced to find alternate housing. And as I've already seen bats in the sky this year, it's possible they're nesting there now. So I would hope that for this project and future projects, there is more concern and consideration of the environment that lies in the path of construction projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Next is Tom Thorson on, no, he's not, okay. John, how about you? You ready?
Here I am.
Okay.
So, yeah, my name's John Wonderland. I live in Fitchburg, 5625 Newtone Street. I've been here for 7 years. And mostly I called in to voice my support for the multi-use path. But I actually very much agree with everyone else who's been speaking that if there's a multi-use path, I actually don't understand bikers that bike on the streets right now when there's a perfectly good multi-use path right next to them. We're biking next to a 2-ton death machine, cars, or a 10-ton semi-truck, and it just makes no sense to me. But I mean, you know, having a corridor between Seminole to Fitchrona with a multi-use path, I think would be wonderful. But the on-street lanes are not needed. That's all I've got.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. I think then that's, is there anyone else on line waiting to speak? I don't believe there is. Okay, then at this point, I'd like to call Dan Barr and Tom Clowder. They would like to speak. Tom is still a current alder, and Dan is former alderperson in Fitchburg.
You can go first.
And former chairman of this board. Yeah, both are former chairman of this board.
Thanks, Chairman. I want to make it clear before I start that I am the alderman for this district, and I still am until, the next 24 hours or whatever. So I just want to inform you that I'm speaking on behalf of people I represent too. But I want to make it clear that besides the assessments that we had, this is another topic that my phone's ringing off the wall. And let me just share with you that my comments are from other people, and they're from Lacey Heights, Seminole Forest, Wildwood, Burnwood, Wildwood South, and a number of other residents that just live in the area. The reason I showed up tonight was due to the fact that, believe it or not, we're trying to save some taxpayers' money here. Sometimes alders don't do that. They want to have their own projects. I've never felt that way. And also, we want to make it safe for travel on this road for motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians. I get that. I totally get that. The couple of things I want to touch on that I've been instructed to talk on, and I've talked to people about, and I think this first one may not even be in there, but I want to bring it up. It's the medians. This is a rural road. This is a road in District 4 that is in the country. I've talked to our plow truck drivers who hate them. They hate them. They have to plow around them. They hit them. They don't like them. The sidewalk. The sidewalk really on the south side of the road should be paid by the developer in the future. Boy, sidewalks are dear to my heart. That's why I ran for election 4 years ago. They wanted to put them in Wildwood South. Sidewalk, I'm okay with it, but let the developer do it. We could rough it in, DPW chair, we could rough it in and do it in the future. I know about Edgewood, I'm familiar with it, but you know what? Let's not pay for it now. Bike lane. Oh, I want to make it clear. I do ride a bike. I'm over 50, but I ride a bike. I like a bike. We don't need a multi-use path in a bike lane. Let me give you the example where the city council listened, actually, to Dan Barr and myself. It was on PD. I brought it up, and I'll bring it up now. The best example I can give you is John Nolan Drive. The bicyclists use it. the walkers use it, the skateboard people use it, and we got the council to believe that on PD, and we saved a whole lot of money. If you know where I'm talking about, it's from Seminole Highway to Verona Road. There's a multi-use path, no bike lane. The trees. Wow. East Lacey Road. It was a disaster. The residents were upset. I was upset. I was on Public Works at the time. They took all the trees down. Let me tell you something about this project. From east of City Hall to Sain Road, cost the city $4.3 million because nobody watched it. And they took all the trees down, and they put in the bike lane, they put in the multi-use path lane, they put in the roundabouts, and the taxpayers really bid it on that one. And I sure don't want to see this come on West Lacey Road. West Lacey Road. The last thing I want to tell you about is I'm astounded that it's even here tonight. Why is this on your program? Why is this on the agenda? Let me tell you why I said that. Lacey Road Ad Hoc Advisory Committee Group is not done. Goose Lake Stormwater Study is not done. How can we vote on this? How can we take stance on this when we have committees out there where people, good people, go to the committee and now get kicked? Why are we talking about this? These aren't even done, these studies that we're supposed to be listening to. I would hope that, in closing, I would hope that you would table this at least until the end of May so that we can direct staff to do more work and get more answers for the project.
Thank you, Tom. Ann?
Hey, thank you. Thanks. You know, Tom, he stole a little bit of my thunder there, but, you know, just to first off, it's great to be back. Good to see all you, Bill and Dave and everybody, you know. Good to see you, all of our friends at Fact TV still here, and it's great. It's still the same, but it's good. And to those I served with too, good to see you. Just a couple of points I would make, real brief, and I won't take too much time. There's the two issues that I'm concerned about, and of course, obviously Tom and I have talked, and I've heard from some former constituents of mine. But it's the cost, and then it's the habitat and the trees. You know, those are real issues that I think that should be looked at. And then the size, the scope, how wide the whole scope is becoming, I think we got to look at that. I think the project's got to go forward. I drove down the road yesterday. I went and checked it out. I've been down there a couple times. So I support the project, but I don't know that there's a huge hurry. You do have the study group, and I think that should be respected. That's important. Tom mentioned that. You know, the cost, you know, when you have some of these extra items that are add-ons, obviously, you know, that can have a detrimental impact on future project if you run out of money, things like that. And so, you know, some of the bike lanes, you know, I think that's questionable. There's a multi-use path. I think that's a great idea. I like multi-use paths. I use a multi-use path when I go jogging out here on East Lacey Road quite a bit. I've never had a problem being hit by bikers, anything like that. It's very, very safe. You mentioned John Nolan Drive as well. Multi-use paths are great. I think it's very sufficient. We also have a very robust citywide bike system as well. I do bike as well. I like to jog, I like to use the outdoors, and so I do use it in a multifaceted way. And also the trees. As I drove through the road yesterday afternoon, I noticed essentially that there are trees, and some of them are pretty close to the road. You may lose some of them, but we should try and minimize the impact any way we can. I thought Sue and Joe had made some good points about that. You know, it's important that we try and protect the habitat, and I understand the city will plant new trees, and I think that's fantastic. But we want this to preserve the current standing of the current habitat out there, and so those are some of the things I would talk about. I wouldn't shortchange the study group that's been appointed. And I think the project will still get done, but some of these things can be looked at, and I think that you got an opportunity to still come forward with a real good project while taking in the public input. So that's all I got. Great to be back. Great to see everybody again. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, did you want to talk? I'm good. Thank you. Tom Thorne. Did you want to speak?
I hadn't planned it, I did register.
I see you registered. I didn't know if you wanted to talk.
And I didn't hear, I was meeting with the personnel, the HR director, before the next meeting.
Come on up, Tom. Go ahead.
Okay, real quick. Good evening, I'm Tom Thorson. I'm a citizen of Fitchburg, have lived here 35 years total, 33 since this last time. I live at 5874 Persimmon Drive here in Fitchburg. I just wanted to just briefly say, I'd ask you to table this issue to go to the May 25th meeting. And part of it is I think we all want to believe in good government and people do the right things. And I think the right thing is to really get a cost comparison. What are all the costs of, of a project? I know from looking around the city and having lived here that people like the multi-use paths for walking and biking, and not along Lacey as far as using their bike, because people don't like, cars going by fast. So I'd like to actually see what the costs and study are and what ways to make a smaller environmental footprint and to cost that out. I think it's very important that citizens know that, yeah, we looked at, here are the various options. So that's all I wanted to say is, table this for now so that it can be really, staff can do that analysis and people can see.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, did Tom O'Day want to talk?
He's here, I see, he's here. Is there a police and fire commission? I see he does. Yeah, we've got a meeting in, about 20 minutes. I think he's here for the police and fire.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your input. Before I move to the board, I just want to make a couple of comments, and then we're gonna have some. We're gonna let Bill and Andrew speak, and then we're gonna have the board weigh in. One thing I'd like to say, I seems like we're rushing. I will defend the city staff some. A lot of projects, we have schedules. You fall off this schedule, then another one falls off. There's a reason why they want to move this ahead. It's not. I don't feel they're being flippant or rushing things. They have a large amount of work in front of them, but we will make a decision based on what's best for the taxpayers. I would like to come back, Bill and Andrew. We've heard pretty much, with the exception of one whose name I won't mention, pretty much everyone has said we don't want the bike lanes on the road. So I'd like to, you guys, what's the driver why they're still being proposed? Can you I want to hear from you on that.
Andrew, you want to go ahead?
Yep. So a little bit back on, I don't know if everybody had a chance to read the staff report, but we started back in February. Kind of what we came to the public meeting with was a larger cross section that had some other elements, buffered bike lane, on-street bike facilities. Through 2 meetings with the advisory group, we kind of worked down what was really necessary. What could we cut to maybe get a minimum size? And in that, folks said, okay, maybe cut the buffered bike lanes. We wouldn't need that. But staff and just general engineering practice generally recommend that we have some kind of on-road, clear zone space. So if that was a rural cross-section, that would be shoulders. If that's an urban cross-section, that would be some shoulder and some kind of clear zone outside the curb and gutter. In this case, we really can't have curb and gutter, face of curb to face of curb, 24 feet or 22 feet. It just doesn't allow for flexibility. If there's a stopped vehicle, you can't get past them. If there's any road work, you're down to flagging operations. Whereas something like a 28-foot roadway would give you that flexibility to have 3 vehicles kind of pass at the same time slowly. But And so really that was the justification for why we kept some on-road space. And if you look around, and it's hard to find an example of a roadway that's less than 28 feet. Our local streets are 32 feet minimum. And they do have parking in some cases, so you can kind of take that in, but also WISDOT recommends for a roadway of this type, with this speed, this volume, we would be looking at 32 to 34 feet. So really 28 was the minimum, and we thought, well, if you added 2 more feet, you could have on-street bike facilities and have that kind of separation of fast modes. So we kind of weighed the benefits and costs and thought that was a good kind of compromise between kind of smallest footprint on roadway facility and the one that we had proposed back in February. So that was kind of the balance, and that's why the on-street facilities are there, because we do need a shoulder in between the travel lane and the curb and gutter. And so, but it is definitely, in the purview of the board and the council of how big that buffer is, or kind of what elements are included in the right-of-way cross-section.
So it was added to provide a clear zone space so that 3 vehicles could pass. Am I stating that properly?
Yep.
Okay, all right. That was the first one. The second, tell me about the grading requirements, Andrew, or Bill, either one of you. I'd like to. That's what's, the grading requirements are driving most of the tree loss. So I don't know road design, so enlighten me on that.
Sure. Yeah, I can help that. So I'll just share my screen because I think it's helpful to see it. So this is the current cross section that you see out there. I can actually give you a quick snapshot of where we're looking. So here at 120, station 120, which is kind of in that just east of Cordista, and where we're looking at the current quarry access on the north side. So in this kind of hilly section, we have the hill going up on the north side, going down on the south side, and so you can see the existing cross section looks like this, and so we have a 2-to-1 slope on the north side of the roadway and a 3-to-1 slope on the south side. And so just to kind of give you, so unfortunately, as we're reconstructing this, we have to build it to modern standards. And so 2-to-1, so anything over 3-to-1 is really kind of a critical slope that it would potentially cause a rollover accident if you were to, an errant vehicle were to drive off that. So anything above that, we would have to put guardrail up. At 3-to-1, we would still need a level landing at the bottom so that if a vehicle does go off, we would have some place for it to kind of, come to rest. So we typically want to do a 4-to-1, and that's kind of a more approachable slope that folks can slow down and kind of redirect on. So the 2-to-1 above it, if we were to do this again, really above the roadway, that's really a slope stability standpoint that we wouldn't want to go any more than 2.5-to-1, just because if we do have to clear away the vegetation, we will have potential issues with erosion control if we go any steeper than that. So we can't put back the roadway the way it is right now, and so even in potentially like a kind of a smaller scale roadway, we would still be cutting in in order to put a shared use path, we'd be cutting into that slope and then having to go to a 2.5-to-1 slope back to match up. Now there are other options like a retaining wall, which early in the design process we looked at. We didn't do that initially because we felt like the cost just wasn't justifiable, but that's certainly something that we're starting to go back to understand what are some of the lower cost retaining wall options that we could potentially get here to save trees, save some of the cutting. But certainly on the downslope, even with a wall option, we would still be talking about removing that clear zone, that kind of safety factor. So we'd be talking about guardrail, and that's something that is possible, though certainly not the best practice if we don't have to do that.
So these are these national highway. What are the standards that you're designing to? Is there a specific state standard or municipal standard? on these. Excuse my ignorance, Bill.
Yeah, so yeah, ASHTO generally, the Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, has the Green Book and the Roadside Design Guide. Those are really kind of some of the overarching design guides, and then that is in turn kind of adopted by various state. So in our case, the WISDOT Field Design Manual states a lot of these things, and so these are the typical. So we have the clear zone definition and kind of that recoverable slope, and then just on the slope stability standpoint, it's more from a erosion control specification.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I would just say, from the start of this, I've had three objectives. One is improve safety on this road with the hill and the curve and sight lines. Second is a design that carry us into the future. The most expensive thing we can do is under-design this road and have to come back a short time later and try to do something to improve it. And the third, probably is where most of us are falling. We want it to be cost effective. So I've been weighing all of these things, as we move forward. I have some distinct things I'd like to suggest, but I'd like to hear from the other board members right now on their thoughts about what they like to see in the road, whether they prefer to defer this. I would like to hear their thoughts right now. Sarah, would you like to go first?
Sure. I agree with all of your goals that you detailed, Dave, because I do think that the road is unsafe, and I do think that it has room for improvement, and I like the idea of us being proactive and looking to the future to try to be cost conscientious. But I am in full support of delaying this project. I can't help but put in my own personal experience of walking on Lacey Road's multi-use path frequently, and just realizing that that's where I see the bikers. And as a walker, I think it makes sense. And there's plenty of space on that multi-use path. And although I'm not a bicyclist, I see their perspective of wanting that safety buffer. And so I just think that the idea of delaying this for some additional research makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. And just from the comments tonight, I do think that I'd love it if we could save more trees. I think when I was looking, it seemed as though the tree study that we had available didn't extend to the full project. So I think that the impact is significant for trees, and I think that anything we could do to minimize that would benefit the city. And so I think I fully support the idea of delaying this just so we can do more research. And just to voice my opinion, I like the idea of just having the multi-use path, the bike lanes. I completely agree that I don't think we can quantify that data, and I know we did bring in the bike committee, and they kind of had talked through as to how we don't have a study that can support a number of bicyclists that do go through the city, and not saying that they're not there, but just that it's an unknown, and recognizing that the multi-use path is a great feature and offers some safety from some of a buffer. I think that has a lot of value, and balancing it with losing the nature and the costs affiliated with it, I can't support those, and I just am in fully support of delaying the resolution.
Thank you, Sarah. Michael?
Before I kind of chime in, Andrew, and I know that you and I have kind of talked about this, and I've been for the Public Works Board. I sat in on the advisory group, also the TCC discussion, or TTC discussion on Monday. So I'm intimately aware of a lot of my questions. I believe a lot of my questions have been answered, but just from a process and knowledge standpoint, Andrew, a couple questions for you. One of the things, if you looked at the minimum, I'm looking at figure 2, the staff recommendation. I don't know if you can pull that up real quick instead of looking at me talk. Maybe that can kind of help everybody. But the staff recommendation for the cross-section on page 17 of the packet kind of lays out what I believe was relatively close to the minimum. Yeah, thank you. Was relatively close to the minimum, where you have the path on the north side, a terrace, your 2-foot curb and gutter, your bike lane, your two 10-foot travel lanes, bike lane, and you guys can see that. So, Andrew, if I'm not mistaken, from the kind of minimum specification that we could have gone with, that really the only difference between the minimum and this staff recommendation is an additional area with, in that 2 to 3 foot gutter area, widening that out on both sides to make room for a bike lane, correct?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, we went from 28 feet from face of curb to face of curb, so this distance here, to 30 feet in order to have those be, standard bike lanes.
Yeah, so we're already at more or less minimum. If we wanted to tonight, kind of get the bike lanes off, and it kind of sounds like that's the direction that a lot of people are kind of leaning towards. If we took the bike lane out and we really stuck within this minimum cross section here, we're basically saving 2 feet.
That's right.
Is that fair? Okay.
Yep.
So looking at what other alternatives from a lower cost perspective, from a lower environmental perspective, I don't want to generalize, but are we going to gain more efficiencies, both from an environmental standpoint, from a, I don't want to say a safety standpoint, but this kind of meets all your objectives. But would we gain anything by, taking a look at that minimum versus this recommended, other than kind of what the savings of the 2 feet on each side, or I'm sorry, just the 2 feet, the 1 foot on each side?
Yeah, I mean, with the smaller footprint, you would have reduced runoff, and that 1 foot on each side, delta in space savings and tree reduction for whatever trees lie within 2 feet in that 2 foot buffer on either side.
But in just from your knowledge of this, is that a fairly substantial thing, or is it going to be kind of minimal?
From my understanding, that would be fairly minimal. Again, this is all kind of relative, right? But for the most part, we're talking about a relatively small stretch of kind of a 1.1 mile roadway that has kind of these more significant impacts. And so I think there's a lot more work that we can do in the advisory group to work through how we can maintain the smallest footprint in there. I don't know if that necessarily is dependent upon these 2 feet on this entire corridor. If that is really a difference maker from, a significant difference maker for us to delay. And that's kind of what the justification was: bring the typical now, and then let's sink our teeth into some of the details in some of these trouble spots at the next subsequent meetings.
Yeah, and that was my understanding on that part. And it didn't hit me until Monday night when Alder Gerhardt, kind of, I will say, very eloquently put it that on a project where you have the slopes, and especially out, kind of towards the quarry, this project comes with tree loss. There's no way, shape, or form around it. If you do the project, you will lose trees, and obviously the goal is to minimize trees. Approving if we looked at a cross section and we looked at a minimal cross section, that in and of itself, is more or less is kind of supporting the overall project. It's not looking at, what elements could we put in to minimize the tree impact on this. It's just more or less kind of saying, these are the features that we feel are important, or by lack of omission are not important, to this project. And in doing so, that kind of sets you up for future design to say, okay, now that we take a look at this is where our footprint is going to reside. Now, how can I minimize the impact on the remaining footprint around this area? Is that a fair statement?
Exactly. Yep. And certainly there's that context and kind of that interplay of, if we were doubling the roadway width, then that would certainly play into that. It's just the relative scale of what we're talking about and kind of some of these elements is relatively minor in terms of kind of the overall grading impacts. But unfortunately, by touching this, we have kind of some significant impacts in at least in the hill area, and potentially, and they're kind of isolated towards that. Although there are a few pockets of trees further east, and that we would also want to kind of hone in on and make sure that we're doing everything we can in terms of cross-sectional elements and kind of the micro-level design to save those.
Yeah, and I know you're in a tough spot too, because you're going back and trying to kind of minimize all this stuff. And again, I won't speak for the whole, subcommittee or TTC as a whole, but, just kind of seeing all the different parts that go in and all of the different design components that go into this. Does waiting, does not moving forward with a recommendation one way or another tonight prevent you from, kind of doing further study on the trees, or vice versa? Would waiting on, further tree studies further up the hill or further down the hill, does that impact, what a staff recommendation may look like to a typical cross-section? Or is it like, either you kind of choose the minimum or the minimum plus a couple bells and whistles, and that's going to be more or less it? And then the tree impact doesn't really change that component. It just maybe changes some other elements that go along next to the road or the grading decisions that are made. Yeah.
Basically, it's always a chicken and egg thing here, and I didn't want to lock in everything to say, like some regret of, now we learn later on that, we could have had another option, and now we can't go back. It was more just we want to try to kind of make sure we understood, we got direction from the boards, commissions, and council on kind of where to go with the cross-section elements. What did we as a city want to put in this roadway project, so that we can lay that out and then try to make it fit as best as we can in the current context. So it's more like, we don't want to lay out 8 different options as much as we would love to. That just all costs money, and kind of that specific nuance of how it is going to get laid out isn't always necessary if we know roughly what we want to include. So yeah, exactly. So it doesn't hold us up. It's just that it will cost more time and money to get more options, but that's definitely something we can do if that's the direction. We're just trying to hone in on what the city wants, to be included, so that we can start getting that design.
So Michael, what do you want? Or what's...
Yeah, so here's what I want, right? Because it's all about me. I think Andrew's done a fantastic job. And again, I've sat in, and I don't dare speak for, the subcommittee and or TTC. But as I've looked at this, I think that the staff recommendation without the median, the 10-foot path, everything looks great, but for the additional 2 feet to add the bike lane. I understand that it's only a 2-foot addition onto the moving it from a 28-foot to a 30-foot road. However, just because of safety concerns and some of the feedback that we've gotten, if we minimize that footprint as much as possible, I think that can add in quite a bit of, that adds in all the usage elements that we've talked about. It minimizes the median, which Alder Clouder, definitely laid out. I live in this area. I don't think a median, unless it's absolutely necessary for grading, would matter. So I like the idea of actually moving forward with the staff recommendation with an amendment to remove the 5-foot bike lanes from there and have what would be 4-foot curb and gutter, 4-foot on the sides.
Yeah, it would be just 14-foot travel lanes.
14-foot travel.
Just remove that stripe and then bring it in. Yeah.
So I think that's ultimately where my mind would be at on this. I think that accomplishes a lot of the feedback that we've heard, that I've heard over the last couple months on this project. And then, of course, the grading on the south side. Andrew, that was more for the, it's not necessarily that it couldn't be done or that there aren't options around grading, but you know, the grading kind of is a function of supporting the road infrastructure. It's not a matter of setting us up for future development. It's kind of needed to keep that profile edge of that southern road. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, we wouldn't want to directly go to a 3-to-1 slope just outside the curb and gutter, because then we'd have that level landing issue that, you know, because we're at critical slope, then we would need that. So that actually, yeah, that both provides some space for trees and or street lighting in certain locations, and it also provides, some of that clear zone so that folks, you know, if there is an issue.
And I think as a board, we've discussed, and I'll leave it on this final thought here, you know, we've talked a bit about, you know, making sure that the upcoming developments, that if there's going to be a sidewalk along this road, that those developments are the ones kind of flipping the bill for that actual concrete pourage and the actual, you know, packing in of the gravel and all that other good stuff. I think I'm more in favor of that, but taking care of the grading with as little impact as possible that would make the road safe. I would be in favor of that. And then as we would move forward with subcommittee groups, I would see that, you know, we can build in some of those those safety features that were kind of talked about to also keep the road as safe as possible while minimizing the tree loss.
We'll come back to you, Michael, possible amendment. Joe or Rita just wanted to, real quickly, Joe, I'll give you a minute here.
I just wanted to mention that hadn't been analyzed that I forgot to mention earlier, is it was brought up in the advisory group to consider instead of grading the north side, but there's a large hill that has hundreds of trees on it, and instead of grading that hill and removing all of those trees, potentially evaluating the option to add a retaining wall, which would allow for those trees to remain pristine, you know, while still enabling us to have the multi-use path and the roadway. So that's something that I think needs to be considered as well, from an environmental standpoint, as well as obviously, you know, fiscal. So just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, Joe, and I'll agree with Joe on that. You know, and Andrew, this is kind of where the devils to really kind of start to get, you know, scope creeping in. You know, Joe's point is extremely valid. Approving the typical cross section doesn't immediately remove, you know, that's a very detail on a very specific part of the road. It doesn't have a lot to do with the typical cross section. It's all about kind of the way in which, once we get that going, now how do we minimize that tree loss impact? And approving tonight wouldn't preclude or exclude us from looking at that versus a cost versus benefit, you know, further on as we would work with our subcommittee here.
Thank you. I just make a couple comments, then I'm going to turn it over to you. Okay, anything you want to say? One thing I noticed in this, we should be having curb and gutter on the entire street. Our new roads. We're even though it's in a rural area, I believe we want curb and gutter. I feel 28 feet is the maximum width. I can't ignore the fact that, you know, we would like the ability to have cars get by. So you know, a total of 28. Over the hill, agree with Joe and a number of you. Where we get into the hill section, I would like to put a wall and have the bike trail essentially adjacent to the road with some sort of concrete barrier there. And that would minimize the trees quite a bit. I'm assuming that hillside is similar, you know, to the quarry that's being dug. You know, it's limestone. I don't know, Bill, if you know that or not, but, you know, be amenable to a cut there without it caving in. So that The path, we obviously in the flat section down below, won't need it next to it, but I think the area where, our biggest concern, going over the hill with the trees, if we had it just adjacent to the road there with a concrete barrier between the two, that would, the retaining wall probably offsets the cost of having to grade further, so far up the hill, and hopefully that would maybe be a wash or not too much more. So, those are my comments. Bill, would you like to make any comments here?
No, it's been a really good process so far, and I appreciate everybody's input that they put into this project. We kind of took Lacey Road as a kind of a base design because it already went through all the public input and said, well, if it was acceptable in that area, hopefully it'll be acceptable in this area. And obviously there's the same concerns, and we have to address those. I'm not going to, refute any of the arguments that have been made or, concerns that have been made tonight. They're all very valid. And I think we do have some time, to look at those options. Retaining walls are kind of tricky because you have to dig behind them to build them. And you have to make those conditions safe for the workers to install them. So there's definitely ways to do it. It's very expensive. We could put in the steel pile sheeting so that it holds the ground back, and then they get in there and build it. But that's $1,000 a foot just to put the sheeting in that you're going to end up taking out. So it's definitely something that we can look at. And Andrew and his group will be looking at some of those options, but we really kind of need to narrow it down. And I think the board is kind of honed in on that as to what we're going to install out there. Good ideas, move the road south if we can to get away from there. There's going to be grading impact. Every option that we bring up is something that leads us down another path and then another path going the other direction. So we're just trying to get something within the next month to set our goal on to go forward and recommend that. So basically that's what we're going to do here.
Well, let me ask this question. If we vote to defer, am I going to be back here in another month hearing the same arguments that were, if we vote to defer, do I have assurance we'll get to design, there's compromises, we're looking at here.
Mm-hmm.
And compromises, and certainly, cost is a big one, I don't want to defer to end up back here, debating the same things again. Yes, Jay? Yes, please.
I think we just had a really good discussion, just like the one that occurred at the TTC meeting a week ago. And I appreciate everybody's efforts to try to figure out a way to approach this to minimize the impacts and do a safe road. I guess my thought is, in answer to your question, we could be back here, but we won't know unless we all try to get creative and try to solve this. To the extent we have to be back here, the differences are probably going to be smaller. And I don't know about anybody else, but I know that if I was on this board or on the council, and given what happened with Lacey East and all the cost overruns and all the other issues, I would much rather see another a month spent on this trying to figure it out. And to the extent we have differences in a month, we'll know what they are and we have them quantified. I really, really hope either the board or the council say, we want to know what these things cost and we want to know if this is doable. And Bill, you made a great point. If you have to put a retaining wall in there, it could be 5 feet, it could be 15 feet, we don't know, but we do know they're expensive. And that's just, but there's trade-offs here, and that's the thing. If we do our homework, we'll be able to narrow this down significantly, I think, so.
So Jay, what are we, what are we going to be, what are the answers that we need? If we delay here, I want some concrete, these are the things, to give Bill and Andrew or the ad hoc committee to work with them. I need some concrete things that, these are the answers we're gonna get so that we can make the decision. Is it how much is a retaining wall is gonna cost? Is it, what would that list be? I'm asking everyone here, you know, because I want a good path moving forward if we defer here.
Well, we've identified the elements of a minimal cost, minimal impact. That certainly could be adjusted. I agree completely. We don't want to evaluate 7 alternatives. We want one. We want 2. We already have one. The staff has done a great job with the one that they've put together and recommended, and they certainly have a substantial basis for it. We think we have a substantial basis for the alternative, but we also recognize that there could be some other considerations we're not aware of. So I think the first thing to do is decide what the other alternative is, and secondly, cost that out, and then take a look at the other part of this is we still don't have a complete tree survey, and there might be surprises. Maybe there's not that many good hardwood trees in the full footprint of the current proposal, but we don't know that. And I think it would be advisable for everybody to know that.
Jake, can I ask a question
Yes,
for you? What does that additional tree study get us?
Well, it quantifies, we know that the study that was done initially was within 30 feet of the existing road edge, and there was 140 trees discovered. Now, I don't remember the exact numbers, but 80 or 90 of those were in at least fair condition, and they were hardwoods. But the rough estimates are that envelope that was evaluated initially is maybe 1/3 of the total amount that the very good map on page 20 of the agenda packet shows. That's a very well-done document, and it really has an incredible amount of information in it. But we don't know how many trees are in that footprint. And we also don't know where the best ones are, and it may be, who knows? Maybe we don't need a retaining wall because those trees on the side of that hill are scrub, and I don't know the answer, and I haven't been out there to walk it. But I think if the council and this board really want to put $5.7 million into a project, it might be good to take another month and sort through this. And I can guarantee you, I'm not trying to, and other people that I've been working with are not trying to delay this. We're just trying to get information so people can figure out where we want to go from here. And so far, we've got a great, I mean, what we have right now is great, but it's incomplete. And getting back to your question, Dave, I just hope we have another 30 days. I think there's some things that can be done regardless of what happens here tonight. Even if nothing happened here tonight, like happened at TTC, there's certain things I think staff can do, but as we all know, the next step in the process is the transportation project plat, and it's gonna cost big, I mean, you're not talking $5,000 to do that. And do we really want to invest in that until we've got this narrowed down to a smaller, to the extent there's differences? I mean, as an example, okay, we talked tonight about possibly 3-foot shoulder, and then a 1-foot curb and 1-foot gutter. And so that 28 feet, okay, well, if we've got a retaining wall, we got some other stuff going on, maybe that's a footprint that we can all finally say, yeah, that makes sense, and we want to do that. And it's going to cost X, but it's going to have all these benefits. And that stormwater, by the way, that stormwater issue west of Commerce Park Drive is not an insignificant issue, given that subdivision going in at the southeast corner. That's going to generate a lot of runoff, and this road's going to generate a lot of runoff, and that's all going to drain into Goose Lake. And again, do you really want to spend this kind of money without knowing what the impacts are? And so that's why I hate to be a thorn in people's side, but we just need to look at this stuff, I think. So answer your question, I can't guarantee you what's going to happen in a month. I can guarantee you this: if you just go ahead with what you've got right now, you might have some surprises before it's all over that you really could avoid.
Let me, question for Sue. Do we have, if you wouldn't mind coming up, you know, I don't want to keep, every time, you know, I don't want to keep adding money, you know, kind of getting this figured out. Do we have enough competent people in the city that the volunteers could complete this tree survey for us versus going out to a professional firm? You know,
I don't have contacts with enough people that could do that.
How about our city forester? Could she along with some volunteers, could we do that, Bill? You know, I hate to, another $20,000, you know, to come up with a survey where, you know, with maybe some volunteers and you know, the limited availability, you know, limited time we have a forester, that we could do that part ourselves without having a consultant do that for us?
No, we really don't have the staff capacity to get out there and do the survey with the part-time forester we have. We do have it under contract. I believe the survey was completed last week or early this week. It'll be, we'll be documenting it with the actual surveyor going out there and locating those trees so we know exactly where they are. So it's pretty close to being done already.
Is that the full?
Yeah,
width of
it's
slope? Okay.
the full width, plus or minus some, Andrew.
Okay, so a couple things I guess maybe that I'm hoping don't change. One, I think we're gonna have curb and gutter on the road. I think we can agree that a 28 foot is as narrow as we can make it. I feel it's reasonable to be able to get 3 vehicles by at one time, you know, versus just, you know, 2 lanes without it. I got on my bicycle and I rode on Lacey Road from Seminole, you know, towards the school, and that's approximately the same. There's a 3 foot lane on there, and it seemed to me that when I was on that, there's no curb there, but with that 3 feet, it looked like 3 vehicles could get by. You know, if you're in that situation, you're not going by at 35 miles an hour, you know, so traffic can pass so safely. So I think we have a couple of things we've kind of honed in on, you know, that width, I think we're in some agreement there. Again, I feel curb and gutter. Is there anything else? Michael, Sarah, that, could we approve that width, that cross section just for the road and ask, you know, then the ad hoc committee work with city staff moving forward, or do you want to defer and have, you know, have 2 to 3 more meetings as we've heard here? I'm open at this point.
And I just wanted to just once again ask Andrew, just, you know, maybe as a final question, just to kind of re-clarify this. Approving a typical section tonight really gives us the elements that we're looking for the road itself. All of the other surrounding elements are still under consideration and really aren't considered with the footprint of what we're doing tonight. You know, those come next.
Yep. And you know, typically we just have this one cross section for a very varied terrain corridor. So it's general. Yeah, we can certainly ebb and flow as needed, and if that means we can save some trees or save some costs, we can definitely do that. So yeah, definitely this is just kind of a typical. Let's get you know, consensus on design to move forward and polish it up.
Yes, Jay.
Can I ask a question about what this approval, even of the cross-section, that's actually a very good station to have a cross-section for. But if this approval would occur, well, if this recommendation is made to approve that subject to the understanding that we're approving a 28-foot road with the curb and gutter, and we're asking staff to evaluate the north and south side options to try to minimize. If that were to be accepted by the council, does that mean the staff can now start spending, let's just say, $100,000 to prepare the TPP? Or does that mean that the preparation of the TPP will await the final, what would you say, cross-section that represents further input from the ad hoc advisory group and other reflections by the staff on how to address the issues that were discussed tonight? Because I think that's a critical understanding beyond just that we're going to approve a 28-foot wide road tonight. What else goes with that? That's my question.
Alder Clotter? can stay there if you want, Jay, you're back and forth quite a bit.
You stay there, Jay. Thanks, Mr. Chair. There's so many things you and I agree on, so many things. But you know, that's life. There's some things we don't. And I can still have a beer with you. And you add curb and gutter to this, and I take that out to the rural area and ask the rural people. They're going to say, what in the heck are you putting curb and gutter out there for? You've added millions of dollars to that with that curb and gutter. I get it. I know it, you know. But the area that I represent is rural. That's a rural street. It is fast to I got it. Mike over there is going to tell me it's not a rural street because he lives on it, but it's a rural area. It's a rural street. I know how the rural area thinks. I also want to bring this up for the public watching. The other alder and myself pushed the timeline up to get Lacey Road at Seminole Highway either a roundabout or a stoplight sooner than later. And the council went along with us. Now, I'm not going to give you an answer on that. I'm not going to give you an answer because we're still working on it, which I have to refer to staff on. But this is all another piece to that puzzle where it's not done yet. And the other piece is, isn't it interesting, at the last city council meeting I was at, for now, it's my last one, it didn't even go to the finance committee. We had to bring it to the finance committee. They haven't discussed this. And they hold the pocketbook for this project. They discussed this project. We don't know who's going to be on finance right now as I'm sitting here. And Sarah doesn't know either because those appointments haven't been made. So that's another piece to this puzzle that is not complete. I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Chair. I've been in your shoes. Sometimes you don't want to see things 3 times. But you know what? A project of this magnitude, I said it. There's 3 projects in the city, multi-million-dollar projects now. You already know who they are. And Scion Road is one of them. 2 of them, well, let's say it for the public. Fish Hatchery Road, Scion Road, and Lacey Road. Those are our arteries. Not only they're important, but they come with a heck of a price tag to the taxpayer, who, you know what, I want to tell you something. Pays for the road for other jurisdictions to use. Madison, Oregon, New Glarus, Belleville, I can keep going. We pay for them. They use them. So just keep in mind that I'm with you, but take your time, do it right. And there's a lot of questions here that are unanswered. My partner over here, Jay, he had a number of questions, but they weren't just from him for the staff. They were from the neighbors. They were from a lot of neighbors. You'll be surprised how many people are watching this. So just keep that in mind. That's all I wanted to tell you. That's all.
Yeah, I'll just count, you know, we probably agree to disagree. As I mentioned, I don't want to come back on the road, have to do it again. That's, the curb and gutter holds up longer. And certainly if you're a rural resident, you don't want that. There's no residents on there, you know, except Mr. Richardson on the, you know, and perhaps, so it's, I guess we'd probably agree to disagree on that one, Tom, but, all right. Anyone else? Mr. O'Day, did you want to say anything? No. Hard time staying awake, Sue?
Yeah, we focused a lot about the trees that are up on the hill, the large cluster of trees. There's another group of trees that I wrote about previously to the council at the very onset of all this, and that is what I view as the sentinel trees. They're all oak trees, and they're close to where the Badger State Trail crosses Lacey Road. And I think the road width that you're describing to allow 3 cars to pass does not allow those sentinel trees to exist any longer. And one of the questions I've asked, which we haven't gotten answered yet, is that aside, road width aside, squeezing in between those trees, and those are probably, just a guess, at least 100 years old, 80 years old, maybe more, is that the multi-use path on the north side, I wanted to know if that could swing around the north side of those trees.
That was my intention, or that's what I thought it would have.
Yeah, I don't think we can assume that. It's not something that's been answered. Yes, my question hasn't really been answered. I saw that Wisconsin Gas had put their lines in underground, and I asked about if the path can go over the top of the gas line as one option. And so that's, and I'm not an engineer, I can't say what works, what doesn't work, but that's another area of consideration. That's why our request was, and the advisory committee is talking about 6, there's really 6 typical cross-section areas that are all different from each other. And I know you use the word typical in an engineering sense, but to my mind, we're trying to fit something typical on top of an atypical topography. So I'm just not confident that if it goes forward right now, as requested by staff, that it's anything more than the train has left the station and we won't have really much input from here on. And that's a concern I have. And then just finally, the other concern is I do hear, not just here, but other meetings where there's a reference to what was done on Lacey Road from Saline to City Hall as being sort of a standard that should be applied. And I appreciate that that's not what you think.
You never heard that from me.
I know that, but I've heard it from other people sitting at your desk. And so we've kind of all established that that's probably not the case here, but there's another part of Lacey Road between Seminole Highway and Fish Hatchery Road, and that's where my neighborhood association is located. And if those standards are applied, start driving down that road and look at all the mature trees, because they won't be there if that same standard is applied, and I'm concerned about that as well. So I would like us to think about each section of the road on its own instead of one end of it being the standard for the entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dave, I guess I just had one more thing.
Yes, Sarah.
Thank you. Just to align with Alder Clotter, like, this is a multi-million-dollar project. It just, in my mind, it feels like the responsible move to delay this, just to make sure that we have all the information. Everything I'm hearing sounds favorable, with Andrew being responsive and listening to residents, and residents understanding that the flexibility will be needed. I just feel like with how large of a project this is, it feels more responsible, in my opinion, to delay it just to make sure that we're having all of the information possible. Like, even just Bill mentioning that tree study's already in the works. So what if we find out that with this updated tree study that, like Jay had mentioned, that it's just scrub? Like, I think even just having the information so that we can make an informed decision and feel good about it and not regret having chosen a path and not having all the information just feels a lot more responsible, in my opinion.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to postpone Resolution R6121 until May 25th.
I have a second on that motion. I believe I can second it, I believe.
Are you amending the original motion?
We are, no, we are, no, we're not, we're,
Motion on the floor.
there's a motion on the floor,
There's a
yes.
motion on the floor
Approve.
to approve.
Okay, and so,
Can I make a motion to amend, to postpone?
Alder Schroeder as in a motion to amend to postpone.
Mike Gronetsky seconded that.
Michael Gronetsky seconded. All in favor of postponing?
Oh, wait. No, Mike Gronetsky seconded the original motion. So if you're amending,
Okay. So then, motion by Schroeder to postpone approval or approval of the cross-sectional area. Do we have a second to that amendment? I believe I can second it. I'll second that. First, motion, or vote on the motion to postpone Resolution R 6121, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Motion carries 2-1. Do we need to vote on the original resolution? Yet? I don't believe we do.
I don't think so.
So,
The-
we voted on the amended motion.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
voted on the,
There, yeah.
okay. So now, all right, so now, call a vote on Resolution R 6121 as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Motion carries 2-1. I would like, I would like, we're gonna stop this discussion right now. We have to get on, but I would like this week to come up with some concrete steps here, what we're gonna try to get done in the next month, okay? Thank you for your patience. I appreciate everyone, your input. Obviously, it's very, you know, I appreciate so much input on this. You know, people are concerned, and wherever we get to, you know, not everyone is going to be happy. You know, I just, you know, I don't think there's ever been a city project where everyone was happy about the result. But we're going to try to, you know, do its best. Again, I come back to adequacy of design is what I wanted for future safety, and cost effectiveness are the three drivers that I continue to want to see on this project. So thank you again for your time. Thanks for sticking around so late. All right. All right, moving ahead here. Next, we have Resolution R 6521, approving a agreement and/or permit between Wisconsin DNR, or Wisconsin Department of Transportation, DNR, and City of Fitchburg to reconstruct and improve Badger State Bike Trail as part of the Lacey Road construction project. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Gronetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Schroeder. Discussion, can this go ahead, given the uncertainty of the Lacey Road cross-sectional design? Or can this move ahead?
No, I believe it can
Okay.
go ahead. This is the Promega TID, or the Promega project, is required to install a 10-foot wide path. So it's required for us to get a permit to construct it, generally in the area going into the Badger State Trail, and to maintain that. So we got in the permit, we're asking for the opposite side of the tracks too, on the east side, so that we can eventually construct that pathway through the easement or the Badger State Trail area.
Sounds good. Thank you, Bill. Questions from board members on that one? Okay. We'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 6521 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R 6821, approval of purchase street sweeper in 2021. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Gronetsky. Do we have a second? I'll second the motion. Discussion, Bill, I'm going to ask the question, is this part of what would be the 25% increase in stormwater rates that we'd be looking for next year?
Yes, it's to bring us into compliance.
then I'm gonna ask this question, or I'll let the board, Sarah, anything? Kim, Michael, I'll let you guys weigh in. Bill, I'll ask the question, so, everyone knows I'm kind of a grumpy old guy anyway, but could we be having, someone drive second shift on our existing street sweeper to meet our compliance? We need a second to keep up. Are we just running the street sweeper on first shift? And we need two to get it done? Could someone be driving second shift also and get the amount of streets done, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, but we haven't split the shifts. We haven't split our staff like that yet. We still run our 8-hour days, but it takes about 6 weeks to get through the entire city, and we need to be through there once a month. So we're bringing on the second sweeper because of all the streets that we've added through the years. But
did we ever consider doing that? I guess I have to ask that. I have to ask that question. They're gonna be after me with pitchforks and torches. After 38%, then 25%. I guess I got to ask that hard question. Could we run a second shift and not get by with one street sweeper? If you tell me no, I'll. If you say we can't do it because our people only work one shift, I think I'd be willing to pay a premium for the second shift to save on the street sweeper.
sure. The street sweeper we do have was purchased at least 10 years ago, and it's getting near the end of its life. So we're looking to purchase this new one, plus purchase another one in a few more years to keep going with that. We really do need the second one out there to continuously sweep.
Okay. Well, this is something I'd like to think about. We can't. I don't have. I don't want our stormwater rates. Higher than Sun Prairie's. Put this in the back of your mind. Okay. There's no reason we couldn't have a second shift. Granted, when you're running a machine that many more hours, it wears out twice as fast. I realize that also. Any other from the board? Anyone else?
Yeah, I've got a couple quick questions on this one. It says in 2015 a bid was advertised. Are those typos?
Yeah.
Is that?
I saw the same thing, Michael.
Yeah, they're typos. They should be 2021.
Okay.
Okay, and the reason why I ask is I have not been on the board 10 years, but I swear to God, we bought a street sweeper not too long ago.
Okay.
So we have one, and if you don't have this, that's great. But we have one functioning that we run, and it was bought about 10 years ago.
I believe so. I'll check the date on it.
Okay. And this is solely for capacity,
Right.
correct?
Right.
All right. Any other questions?
And this was in the
CIP.
CIP.
Yes.
So the conversation about whether or not we need to do it has already been had. This is just authorizing the purchase of this guy.
Correct.
So we're all, aware that there will be, this will be part of the increase in stormwater rates that we're gonna be, somewhere around this time next year, we're gonna be facing us. So just, it shouldn't be a surprise. I kind of got surprised the last time I wasn't paying enough attention. This I know is coming.
And I think, to that point, this seems more like, and I'm not sure, Bill, if you can kind of comment real quick on why this would come out of the stormwater rates versus a capital purchase.
It's used specifically for the stormwater utility, for the maintenance, for the ongoing permit and maintenance of the stormwater.
Prior to the establishment of the stormwater utility, it was just part of our streets budget here. But, any other questions? Call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 6321 signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next, Resolution R 8521, a resolution approving release of a public utility easement and recording of new public stormwater easement on Lot 96 of the plot of Fahey Fields. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Lobdell. Do we have second by Granetsky? Discussion, have we talked about this one before, Bill? It seems like I've seen.
There's lots of easements we've been
Okay.
releasing and acquiring, but this is a utility easement that's located on a private lot in Fahey Fields, just specifically for private utilities. And we're asking MG&E and all the utilities to vacate that so that we can dedicate a stormwater easement over the top of it to take care of some backyard drainage. So this is what this request is, the release of the easement, and then the next item, I think, is the approval of the easement.
Are they, have they installed electric and gas in that easement already? Okay.
No, we talked with the utilities, and they verbally have told us that they're going to release that to the city.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Pardon my ignorance, but is there gonna be then, are we gonna be doing some modifications to hold water at all? What does that look like once we put a stormwater easement on there?
Right now, adjacent to the park, there's a backyard swale that goes and it intercepts the water from the private lots before it goes into the park. So it's going to get directed to this low area for a catch basin. It's going to go into the storm sewer and into the regional ponds that were constructed for the development.
So this is more of a catch basin than anything else? We're not
Right.
expecting water?
Yep, it's a pipe and a catch basin to get it to the regional basin.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Let's call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 8521 signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Kim is going to abstain on this one or recuse herself. Resolution R 62-21 approving revision to state municipal agreement for County MM and McCoy Road. Is that the right one, Kim? Yep, she's gone. All right. We have a motion to approve Resolution R 62-21.
Motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Second, moved by Granetsky, second by Schroeder. Discussion.
The state municipal agreement that we had, the Department of Transportation had requested some language changes regarding the scope of the project and how the costs were allocated. And that's what the agreement has been changed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Bill on this one? Okay, call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 62-21 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R 8821, amending the 2021 refuse and recycling fund budget, fencing and gates at the recycling center. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Schroeder. Discussion, kind of come back full circle here. You're going to put in a fence bill, use some of the money we had allocated for the sifter.
Right.
Okay, so there won't be a change in the rates, and it's going to give us some control of the site is what we're.
Yeah, we've got quite a bit of debris that's been blowing around from the drop-off site from, styrofoam and cardboard and things like that. And we're going to be putting up one of these great big, screens in the area to keep it from blowing into the fields. We send staff out there, a couple times a week going to pick this stuff up. So if we can keep it contained, the better. And then we've also mentioned that we've had some issues with external drop-off from outside our community into using our drop-off sites. So we'll have the ability to, secure the site at night to at least prevent some of that from happening. And, if we have to, restrict during the day and things like that, it'll give more control to how people access the site.
All for it. All in favor, any other questions for Bill?
You have questions. What was the, so this is just 21,600 for maintenance drop, or for the maintenance of that drop-off site. So there was no additional CIP funding or anything like that that was needed.
Correct. Yeah, we're carrying over the funding from last year, plus we added a little bit this year that we were going to use for the screener, and we're going to be reallocating that toward the gates and fences.
And is this just gonna be a chain link fence that goes around the perimeter with a door to let cars in?
Yes,
Okay, and the door will be open during the day and then closed up at nighttime?
yeah, that's what we're planning on doing, dusk to dawn, like parks.
Okay.
Or dawn to
And we
dusk.
have staff that can kind of maintain that there.
Yeah, we're working on that to figure out how we're going to do that, to cover that.
Yeah. If any of the board members wanted to spend Saturdays at the site, you know, monitoring it, we sure the city would like to have them do. But I'm not sure I'd want to get into confrontations either.
Says the person who is famous for volunteering driving brush to that site for residents who wanted one more pickup.
Yeah. All right.
So are you going to evaluate what the hours are going to be? I mean, there's a lot of people who work and who mow their lawns after hours and that kind of thing that are still residents too. And how are you going to plan to inform the residents if you are going to be closing that site during certain hours of the day?
We're still working on that plan as part of our operations plan for next year, but you should see minimal impact this year. We're still working out if there would be, how we're gonna do, you know, overtime or whatever that we would have for staffing that, or if we're gonna be hiring a part-time person to come in and supervise the site and close the gates and open them up and things like that, so.
Okay, so you don't anticipate that it'll be closed this year? Just they'll be installed so you're ready to do it when you have the plan put in place?
Right. Mainly it's right now to keep the debris from flying into the fields. So, but we'll have the gates there when we need to use them.
And I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 88-21 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next, Resolution R 89-21, approving First Amendment to supplement to agreement for subdivision improvements in the plat of 6th addition to 9 Springs. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Lobdell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. Discussion.
This subdivision includes 3 lots that are along the east side of Lacey Road between East Sherrill Parkway and Haight Farm Road. They're, as a condition of occupancy, they needed to complete the improvements for the path, and they could not get them done in time for the intended occupancy in May. So they had requested that we assign that path completion to the second building that's being constructed right now. And this agreement would allow them to do that so that the path would be installed prior to occupancy of their second building.
Do you have any idea of the time frame of that compared to where it is now? When are they planning to build that second building?
The second building is currently under construction.
When it'll be completed?
It will be completed by May of '22 next year. So right after the asphalt plants open up, they'll get the path in and look for occupancy.
Any other questions?
And also part of the reasoning was they thought that they may damage it, or the construction equipment may damage it while they're building that building, so they think it'll be a better long-term product.
That's correct. Yeah, I admitted that. I'm sorry.
This is the type of thing where, you know, I would say the flexibility, you know, we have flexibility in Fitchburg or common sense. You know, this is why I live here. You know, it'd be easy to just put your foot down and say this is the way it is, and you know, I think people appreciate the flexibility. You know, you look at this, and there's a good reason to do it, and Bill outlined it, and helps everyone involved here. So, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R89-21 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R90-21, a resolution approving public pedestrian bike path easements on lots 61 and 62 in the 6th addition to 9 Springs. We have a motion to approve.
Lot 62 and 63? Is
Yeah.
what mine says, not 61 and 62. Sarah and Michael, what do you say?
I got 62 and 63 in the packet.
Yeah,
So the agenda must say 61, 62?
62 and 63 here is on my agenda.
Yep, that's
Right.
what we're approving.
Okay.
Do you know which one is correct?
It's 62, 63.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to approve resolution 9021, approving public pedestrian bike path easements on lots 62 and 63 in the 6th addition to 9 Springs.
Thank you. Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Lobdell. Any discussion? This looks like to be similar to the previous one in the reasoning.
Right, the path is being installed, it's 10 feet wide, and we need an easement in that area to be able to maintain it in the future.
Okay. Questions? All right, all in favor of Resolution R-90-21 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The last 6I, Resolution R-91-21, approving agreement for subdivision improvements in the plot of Livia's Place. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Second by Granetsky, moved by Lobdell, second by Granetsky. Discussion?
Within the plat of Terra Vesta, they've reached their limit of CSMs for platting per statutes, and they had to combine, or they were expanding 5 lots into 8, so they created a plat for that. The subdivision improvement agreement that's proposed covers the sidewalk installation along those platted lots.
Any questions for Bill?
Was this a planning thing, or how does this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the developer proposed the plat, they had assumed single-family homes in the area, and they could put 5 of them in, but a developer came in, purchased those 5 lots and said, hey, I think I can get 8 lots in there, similar to what happened in Quarry Vista with, the single-family homes that all of a sudden became twindos or whatever you call them, side by side with the lot lines.
0 lot line houses, yeah.
The 0 lot lines, and that's similar to what's happening here. So they can get 8 lots instead of 5.
And there's just limitations on the size of a subdivision, and so this bumped it past those, so they're more or less as a new subdivision.
Correct. I can't remember exactly how many CSMs you can have within a certain number of years per platting statutes, and then you have to do a plat instead of a CSM.
I don't want to, for argument's sake, isn't this a way around doing it that way?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are they, yeah, I hope we're not opening a loophole, Bill, I guess.
No.
All right. I don't get hit over the head by someone else down the road if we don't approve. Okay.
It does seem like we're opening a loophole to me.
Bill, has there been precedent? Has this been done before? I know the 0 lot line is something that's approved in the city now. That's been a change. The 0 property line for a duplex or whatever.
But it doesn't, I've never seen it at least come to Public Works where it's created a whole new subdivision.
Yeah.
Well, no. I don't know, honestly.
I would, Bill, what's the urgency on this? I would like to have planning maybe give me a little, I'm very, like I say, I just don't want a can of worms opened up where, you know, I've set precedent and then we you know, can't deny anyone in the future or whatever. Is there, do you need this week, or could this wait till the 3rd? I'd like to talk to planning a little bit, see their thought on it.
Yeah, we can talk, I think they wanted to get started in construction in May, so,
Our next meeting is on the 5th,
yep.
okay.
Is that something where we can make a referral to plan, or Bill, is that
Yeah.
something you do?
You wanted to refer to Plan Commission, or
Yeah.
just get some input?
That's what I would like to get some input from them before we approve this.
I can have them write up a small staff report and include it in the next packet.
Let's do that, and then we have a motion to defer. Someone make a amendment to, or a motion to defer this.
Motion to defer this until
The
review from plan.
May 5th meeting?
The 3rd,
May 3rd, I'm sorry, thank you, Kim. We have a motion, do we have a second? On that, or on that amendment? Is
make
the-
it second. I'm not quite sure how you do this when you already have a motion on the floor. Don't you have to do something with the motion on the floor
We'll
before you
get the-
make another motion?
We'll get there.
You're
Yeah,
earlier.
We'll get there. We know you turned your mic off, that's very good. So first, we're gonna vote on the amendment to defer. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, I'd like to call the vote on the motion to approve the amended resolution R 91-21. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. So this is deferred until May 3rd, and if you could ask planning.
Yep.
Our next board meeting is May 3rd. This time, officially, Sarah, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
We looked it up. We had you on the hook. I'm sorry. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your service. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.